Hello and welcome to Ewe Sew You. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin, I dabble in weaving from time to time and anything else that takes my crafty fancy. But today we're taking a look at the things I've been working on in September. So grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. So welcome back to any returning viewers and to any new viewers, a very warm welcome to you. As I mentioned at the opening to the video, we're looking at the things I've been working on in September today. So before we dive straight in with those, let's have a talk about what I am wearing. This is my Tolster tee, which is a pattern by Rebecca Clow of Creabea. And so the Tolster tee, I've knit it in Holst Garn Coast, which is a finer yarn than is called for in either versions of the pattern, because you get a couple of different gauges, so you can use different yarns, finger weight and DK, to knit the pattern. And she encourages you to play around with it and get your own sort of decorative touches to it. So it's a blank canvas t-shirt pattern that you're then given examples of things that people have done to customise it. So I had to fudge the numbers a little bit because my yarn is finer than called for in the pattern, and I had not enough of any one colour to do the entire t-shirt, so I've striped it and I've worked some slip stitch patterning where I've done the colour changes throughout. So yes, it's a nice basic raglan tee. I do intend to make it at some point again in the correct gauge so that I can actually use the numbers rather than having to do maths as I knit. But yeah, it gets a fair amount of wear. It's a nice lightweight t-shirt. I finished it last year in the summer, so it's over a year old now. It does get more wear in the summer than in the autumn and the winter, but it is light enough to layer under things. And being a knit, it can help with as a base layer with warming things up. So yeah, overall, really pleased with it, and yeah, do intend to make more. Maybe a couple of plain ones, 'cause it's always nice to have a plain tee. And it's nice having actually some knitwear to wear during the warmer months. Not that we've got that today. You may have noticed the light is rather artificial today. I normally film in daylight using the natural light from the garden. But yeah, we're on artificial light today because it is grey and overcast and windy. Apparently there's a storm hitting the west of the country. So we're on the sort of edges of that, getting the knock-on effect of that. But I mean, it's the 3rd of October, so overcast, grey, windy and wet is kind of what you expect in the UK this time of year. So moving on from what I am wearing to my finished objects, and I do have a few to show you. So let's start with some bookbinding. I do every once in a while dabble in bookbinding. I've done a few videos on some of the projects that I've done, so like a couple of them. One of those videos was on these Japanese stab stitch bound notebooks. So these came as part of a kit that my husband got me for our wedding anniversary because it was paper this year. So we have tape on the sides, which is not something that I would automatically assume to do with stab stitch binding or exposed stitch binding, but it is something that people do. So nothing wrong with that. So yes, a little A6 notepads. I have enough thread and fancy papers to do a few more. I'll just have to supplement it with interior pages, which, you know, printer paper will do the job fine. So there is a video on making these stab stitch books on the channel, so if I remember I will link it up in the card above. If not, it's on my channel. You can look at all the list of the videos. It's there. It's fairly recent because it was September. So yeah, so nice little project, a nice simple book to do. The thing with bookbinding, you can go really fancy if you want to, and you can get all the expensive tools and materials and do really exciting special edition rebinds of the books on your shelf or make fancy notebooks to give away as gifts, and that's all great. You can also get quite a swish fancy finish with relatively cheap materials. And you don't need all of the tools to begin with when you're getting started either. And I'm very much a beginner. I don't have very many of the tools. You need paper, you need stuff to cut paper with, you need thread. For some types of binding you need glue. For some types of binding you're going to need some sort of twill tape. you need something to make holes with, and you need something to sew with. So some sort of awl or stabby thing, and a needle. And yeah, so you can do bookbinding for a very low cost. So if you're somebody who likes stationery, who uses notepads, or who just collects empty notepads like I seem to be doing at the moment, bookbinding might be something to look into, because it can be done inexpensively. So thinking more on things that can be done inexpensively, we have another paper-based craft, which I've also done a video for. So it was last week's video, I believe. Again, if I remember, I will link up above. And that is embroidery on photographs. So the first one that I have is this little piece of artwork where I have worked a floral sort of tattoo pattern up the figure's back, embellished the corners and embellished the figure's hair. And I also have a much more subtle embroidery on this picture of a Palestinian girl collecting olives from around about 1911, so before Israel was a state. So yeah, it's a really simple project. Again, for these, all you need is some sort of picture or photograph to embroider on. You can print it off from the internet, as I did with these. These are public domain images. Embroidery thread or whatever thread you can use to embroider with, and again some sort of needle, something to make holes, and that could be the needle that you're sewing with. So simple and affordable project. You can also embroider on plain paper and make decorative items that are paper based with embroidery. You'll want sort of heavier weight paper to do it on. You're not going to want to do it on thin paper, particularly because it could tear. And certainly when you're first starting out, you want something with a bit more substance to it. But big cardstock, bit photography paper, that kind of thing, will all be fine. So yeah, affordable, simple, decorative projects. We do like it. Okay, so that's my paper-based finished object. So let's have a look at the yarny ones, shall we? There's no crochet to show you this week, but I do have some knitting. I have my September gnome. This is Nutmeg. He is from the Adventure Gnome pattern, which I think was a mystery knit along at Christmas a year or two ago. It wasn't last year because that was Nana and I've done that one. But yeah, this is a previous Christmas December mystery knit along gnome from Sarah Shearer of Imagined Landscapes. He does sit flat when I hold my hand properly and when I put him on a shelf. He's a rather ball-shaped gnome, very kind of Santa-esque, with a stripy hat and a stuffed pom-pom. And he's got these little curly-toed boots. The boots have got a bit of stuffing in. The body and the hat and the ball on the hat have got stuffing in, but the rest of it has not. So yeah, he only took me... And I wasn't obviously knitting solidly on it, but I hadn't done within like 3-4 days, right at the end of the month. He's a jolly old soul. So yeah, he sits on my shelf and he is, same yarn as the last couple of months' gnomes. But let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, he's my 10th gnome. By the end of the year, I will have a baker's dozen, as long as things keep going to plan, because there's 3 more months left, so 3 more gnomes to knit for this year's Year of Gnomes. So that gives me 12, and then I did the December gnome last year, so I'll have a baker's dozen of gnomes. But yeah, he's a rather fabulous little chappy. So I'll sit him to one side. I actually need to decide which gnome pattern to use for the next month's gnome, for the October gnome. We'll worry about November and December later. But yeah, Year of Gnomes is going well, and I'm remembering to post as well. That's my struggle with challenges and knit-alongs and things like Tour de Fleece. I forget to post. Forget to share the thing. I do the thing, forget to share it. Slightly problematic, but there we go. These things happen. I have more knitting to show you. Let's talk about my next knitting project a little bit, just before we go into the works in progress, and you'll understand why in a minute. But I do have sewing. Last month I showed you some fabric that I put together using Japanese boromoro techniques-ish, kind of slow stitching. Boro is the Japanese patching, mending method that they use. I was creating fabric from scraps, but I wasn't like mending something, so it's not pure boromoro. And I suspect some of my stitches may not quite count as pure Boromaro, but that's okay. It's an inspired by Boromaro project. It's from a kit that I got from Japan Crafts, and that is this bag. So I have sewn up the fabric that I've made into a bag. There are bits of fraying from the patches, but that's to be expected because I opted to just sew the patches on flat. I didn't turn the edges over, which I guess you could do. So it's a rather fun little project bag, project bag size bag. As it gets used more, it's going to get more worn in. There's going to be a bit more fraying. It's going to look a little bit more scrappy, which is fine. It's a nice little size, it's nice little handles on, and it's got a button closure at the top here. Oh, excuse me, it's the time of year where sneezes threaten and then just don't come through. So you create the fabric by sewing the patches onto another piece of fabric. So it is kind of lined, but you can see the stitches on the inside. Yeah, a nice little project bag size, and because it's a button closure rather than a zip, I could quite easily carry it around and work from it, because you'd have the yarn coming out, the working yarn that you're using coming out either side of the button. I would probably put the sticky yarns, the yarn that sort of gather stuff, into some sort of container, like bag, little zippy bag, or an old sock or something, because the seams on the inside of the bag are exposed. So again, there will be fraying, and you don't necessarily want little bits of frayed fabric in your yarn as you're knitting it. I mean, the fraying will ease up over time. It'll get to a point where it can't fray anymore. So yeah, nice little bag, handy little size. It would be good actually for if you take lunches to work. You could probably fit a lunch in there and use it as a lunch bag. It's that kind of a size. So that's my little Boromaro bag. It was an enjoyable little hand sewing project that I was able to do in front of the TV. It's a box bottom bag, so you know, nice little set of skills to use. I can see me doing more of this kind of thing. It's be very adaptable to do any size you want. This was entirely done by hand. I would consider in a future one doing French seams rather than just the exposed seams, because of that fraying side of things. So having the fraying on the outside is not a problem, but having it fraying on the inside, you need to think about what you're putting into the bag. Okay, so now let's take a look at my other knitting that is finished, sort of. It might need some more work done on it, and that is my centre point popover. So it has been knit to pattern so far. So we have hood and we have sleeves, but if you notice, after the sleeves there's not much body, and so at the moment this is sitting a little bit shorter than I would like it to be on me, by like an inch, maybe 2 inches, but it hasn't been blocked yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block it at some point, and see where it sits after blocking. If it's still not quite as long as I would like it to be, then I'll pick up stitches around the cast off edge and knit a little bit more. I've got plenty of yarn to do that. This was a super fun knit. It's a nice interesting construction. I have messed up on the sleeves. I messed up I wasn't paying attention to where my increases were going, so I ended up with the wrong stitch count, and then I tried to fudge it, and I've ended up with lumps on my shoulders on both sides, but it doesn't really show when it's on, and I think once it's been blocked they will even out. I also have one of these ridges right here on the front, lower down, where I miscounted, and I think I did a purl row but I should have done a knit row, or vice versa. Obviously, I've only done it on the front, but it kind of sits around about where a kangaroo pocket would be on a hoodie, so not too worried about that. But yeah, I mean, overall I'm pleased with it. It's just the length isn't quite where I would want it to be personally, but as I say, it hasn't been blocked yet. And part of the reason it's not quite as long as it should be is obviously I'm not using the yarn calls for in the pattern, so therefore I am not on gauge. So I did know that there was going to be a need for strategic blocking of this garment to get it to fit how I want it to fit. So, you know, it's not unexpected which is fine. So yeah, it's maybe an inch at the moment underneath the sleeves, and because they're back wing, the sleeves do come quite low down anyway. So yeah, so we'll get it blocked at some point when I have the time and energy and space to lay it out flat to dry, because that's going to take a while at this time of year. I mean, I suppose I could hang it to block it using gravity, but as I need length, but we'll see. Might be able to block it flat on my Era, so it is then not getting walked over by a cat. Not sure if the square footage, the footprint of my Era is quite big enough, but we'll see. So yeah, centre point popover by Ina. I can't say her surname, mostly because I've not heard it said, so I don't know how it's pronounced. She's Togi Tiku. And yeah, enjoyable knit. I do like her patterns. They are interesting constructions a lot of the time. There's quite a bit of whimsy in some of them, which is nice. And the way she writes her patterns as you go through each section, particularly for these ones that have got unusual constructions, a really handy feature is that she has diagrams which highlight the particular section of the project that you're working on at that time. So you know exactly what you're doing and what it's going to look like and how it fits into the rest of the garment. So I find that really helpful with the unusual constructions. She did the Bereket, which is knit sideways. So this one, you start in the middle of the back and work out a square. And then you do the front and you're just doing like 3/4 of a square. So it's an unusual construction. So having those diagrams is really helpful just to be able to visualise where you're going and what you're doing. So that's a centre point popover. Hopefully I'll have that to a wearable point by the end of October into November. But we'll see, because I have got other things on the go at the moment that are kind of time sensitive-ish as far as crafting projects go. They're not gift makes or anything, but I mean, more on that when I get to the plans section of the video. So that's my finished objects. So let's move on to works in progress. The first one I'm going to show you is in my Moulin Rouge pouch. So this is my sock project bag. Now I haven't done a huge amount of work on these socks, but I realise I haven't shown them to you for a while. They are very occasionally getting picked up. They were sitting in my handbag for like when I'm sitting around waiting for appointments and stuff. Then I realised that we don't really spend much time sitting around waiting for appointments and stuff, because we time things and get to places just before we're due in and stuff. So they weren't really getting worked on being sat in my handbag. So I've had a chance to put a few rounds on them this month, so you can see my cables are starting to grow a little bit. These are socks that I'm basically improvising. I cast them on ready for our Edinburgh trip, and this is yarn by Fiberpunk, who is a Scottish yarn dyer. This is Taste the Rainbow. Nice and bright, cheery yarn, which I think we're going to need at this time of year. So yeah, good that I haven't finished them yet. And I realised on the train to Edinburgh that I'd cast them on the larger size of sock needles. I have two sizes of sock needles, one for when I'm knitting like stocking stitch patterns or ribbed patterns that have a lot of stretch in them, and a larger size for when I'm doing tighter socks like colourwork and cables and slip stitch, that kind of thing. So I'm throwing in some cables because I used the wrong needles. They were going to be just stocking stitch socks, which to be fair I probably would have got a bit further on with them if they were just stocking stitch, because I'm having to sort of think as I go to put the cables in, which has its benefits. Actually thinking as you go and keeping that sort of mind actively engaged in a project, it's good for your mind health. In terms of it keeps your brain ticking over. And there's a lot of talk about knitting and crochet and its benefits for the ageing brain. And now that I'm in my late 40s, yeah, I kind of fall into that category. So yeah, so we're putting 3 cables up the top. Hopefully they're showing up on the camera there. And I'm just kind of throwing them in as and when I feel. They do seem to be fairly evenly sized at the moment. So that will just sort of cinch the sock in a little bit and make up for the fact that I'm on 2.5s rather than 2.25s. Yeah, so those are those. Let's put them away in the little pouch and put them to one side. I mean, I couldn't not use a Moulin Rouge. pouch that's covered in Can Girls legs for anything but socks, really, could I? So yeah, so that's that project. Over to the one side. The final project that I have to show you today, because I'm only showing you stuff I've been working on in September, there was a cast on yesterday, but that was October, so it doesn't count. So in this bag that I got in Scotland, so this is a bag from Mary King's Close, which, by the way, if you're ever in Edinburgh looking for something to do that is inside and has a bit of history to it, but a bit of interest for the kids as well, I would recommend Mary King's Close. It's underneath a government building, so you're not allowed to take photos in there because it's technically part of the government buildings, but they do souvenir photos at the end, so don't worry, you will get memories from it. But it has stuff on the Black Death, which is why I've got a plague doctor on there, and lots of history. It covers quite a wide span of history as you go around. But the closes in Edinburgh have been built on top of, since they were in use. They probably were still in use when they were built on top of, to be fair. So some of the buildings are being sort of cut off part way through, so they're shorter than they should be. And then as you go deeper, you get to see more of the full height of the building. But it's a really interesting slice of Scottish history. So in this bag, I have a project being made with yarn that I bought in Scotland. I went to Ginger Twist with Marcus, who is Fiberpunk. We met up for the day and picked up 2 skeins of each of these colours. This is Crunchy Leaves, this is Au Naturel, and they are in Masham Mayhem DK from Ginger Twist, from the Ginger Twist studio. So we popped down there and supported the Scottish economy. So these are my 2 colours. And this is for another Togu Tiku project. So I have started working on the Folk Fest vest. So for a Togu Tiku pattern, this is a relatively standard construction, as in it's not like knit sideways or from the centre out. It's a bit more ordinary in terms of construction, but the stitch pattern on it is a little less ordinary. It starts from the hem up with a provisional cast on. So the grey at the bottom there is my provisional cast on. So this is the Folk Fest vest, if I haven't already mentioned that. And we have this slip stitch patterning around the bottom. So I've done the bottom borders slip stitch patterning, and I'm now working up the body. I've got maybe an inch to go before I need to put more stitch markers in and think about the next bit of shaping. But it's worked in 2 colour garter stitch, which is not a stitch that I'd come across before. So 2 colour garter stitch, worked flat. So this is my full hem length. It is looking a little bit frilly at the moment, but I think that's partly to do with the shaping at the bottom, because the vest curves at the corners of the hems. So 2 colour garter stitch is a 2 pass per row stitch pattern, like brioche. But unlike brioche, there's no yarn overs or anything like that. You just work a knit row in one colour, then you go back to the beginning and do a purl row in the next colour, then you turn it, do a purl row in the first colour, slide it back, knit row in the second colour. So yeah, 2 row garter stitch. So nice and simple, but it does give this lovely soft mottled tone to it. So this is coming along nicely. It's not been on the needles very long, maybe a couple of weeks, week and a half. So yeah, enjoying this. It's a fairly simple stitch. There is more slip stitch patterning to go on the back panel to create a large diamond. And I think it's an applied eye cord that goes around the edge, I think that's what it said. Obviously, I haven't looked that far ahead in the pattern in great depth since starting it. I think I've got the size about right. Obviously, it looks like quite a lot when you have it out that way, but when you fold it round, like it will be around the body, it doesn't look quite so huge. So yeah, I'm enjoying this one, and this is going to be a nice layer to have for the autumn and into the winter. I'm quite into wearing cardigans at the moment because I'm at that stage of life where I need to remove and reapply layers of clothing periodically throughout the day. So this will be a good addition, being essentially a sleeveless cardigan as a waistcoat. So yeah, so that is there. I'm hoping again to have this done in October, but we will see how we get on, because I am, again, having missed last year, I am doing the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along the Musicale. I am not going to show it to you today, although obviously I cast it on yesterday, because obviously yesterday was October, it's not something I worked on in September. I'm not going to show you the colours at the moment. I think I might have shown them to you before. I'm not going to show them to you because they're over there in the bag with what I'm already working on. I don't want to give anybody spoilers because the pattern's only been out a day. 2 days by the time this goes live. So yeah, there will be a reveal in November, either at the beginning of November in the October version of this video, or at the end of November in the November version of this video, depending on when I get it finished. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting project. It's a 4-colour shawl. When the pattern dropped yesterday, I wasn't able to look at it in the morning, so we had some appointments during the day, so I wasn't able to look at it properly until later on. But I did notice when the pattern dropped that the YouTube video to go with Clue 1, which I haven't watched yet, is over 3 hours long. So that, combined with the fact that Stephen West has issued a spoiler document along with the clue, in case people get stuck on the construction, maybe go, oh, this clue's going to be a bit involved. So I've cast it on, I've made a start. There's a lot of pages in this particular clue. So yeah, a lot of steps. It's going to be an interesting one. So we'll see how that turns out. So that is my main knitting project for October. See, I do want to get the Folkfest Fest done as well, and hopefully sort out the Centrepoint popover, but we'll see how we get on with those. If the socks don't get done until later in the year, that's fine. I've got socks, so I'm not desperate for them. Other plans include some sewing projects. I've got a couple of sewing projects lined up that I need to stick the patterns together and cut the fabric out, because I really should have done them by now, because they're Minerva projects, deadlines. I think I've got maybe a couple of weeks before I really have to have it done, but I would have liked to have got it done in September, not least of all because they are summer fabrics. But they're print-on-demand fabrics, and obviously they take longer to come out, so we're going to get them sewn up during the autumn, and then they'll be ready for when the weather warms up in the spring and summer. And I may be able to layer them as well with colder weather stuff. I mean, thick tights and a chunky cardigan over summer fabrics are going to be fine. Obviously, don't put your tights over the summer fabrics, put them underneath. But you know what I mean. So one's a jumpsuit, one's a dress. So you can layer those, potentially. One of them's a nice bright fabric, so that actually might not be a bad plan for the winter. And I'm also waiting on another couple of print-on-demand fabrics from Minerva for another summer couple of projects. The only hesitation I have with working with summer weight stuff in the winter, well, it's 2 hesitations. One is motivation, because I want to be cosy in the autumn and the winter, so working with summer weight stuff can sometimes take me a bit of a push to get on with it. And the other one being that your size can fluctuate a little bit. I tend to be cosy down and plump up slightly in the winter. It's like you're fattening me up for Christmas. And then slim down a little bit in the summer, because obviously we get out and about more when the weather is nicer, so we're being a bit more active. So sizing is a bit of an issue, but I think with the particular projects that I've got, that should be fine. The dress is a nice loose fit, so that's not going to be affected too much by slight adjustments in size. And the jumpsuit has a tie at the waist. Again, it's quite a loose fit, but it's got a tie adjustment at the back of the waist, so that'll be fine as well. So I just need to actually get the motivation there to do it. And it does then mean that I will have things ready for when the weather warms up, rather than it getting warm and it being too hot to actually do anything. So I don't get them done in the summer either. So this is a good thing, having them to do in the autumn and winter. Just need to get on and do it. So that's coming up. I mean, thinking about the size thing and the not getting out and about, we did actually invest the other day in a treadmill. On the basis of In the spring and summer, we go and walk in the National Trust property across the road. There's a nice park there with deer and wildlife and streams and everything. But in the autumn and the winter, we get a lot of rain and it gets a bit boggy. And we don't necessarily want to be going for a walk in the driving rain. It'd be different if we had a dog because we'd have to. But in the driving rain, yeah, not so pleasant. So we've invested in a treadmill so that on the days where we want to get some activity in, but the weather doesn't want to let us, we can do it on the treadmill. It's cheaper than joining a gym, essentially, is why we've done it. Plus the gyms are on the other side of town and we don't drive and the buses don't come up to where we live. So by the time we've got to the gym, we've done a workout. I'm not paying to do a workout on top of a workout. That would be silly. But hey-ho, that's what's going on with us at the minute. Life is lifing a bit at the minute, in a good way. So you might find that occasionally we're a little bit sporadic with the videos. They may not come up every single week. Well, I'm going to try. But they may not come up every single week, just because we're being busy, which is good. So yeah, that I think is all I have for you today. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. In the meantime, there's this one here that may be of interest to you, and I will see you soon. But until then, happy crafting, and bye-bye for now.